Welcome to Trending Update USA. This is Stefan, and I'm glad you're with us today. The Australian Open's announcement of record-breaking prize money has once again pushed the conversation about fairness, value, and equality in professional tennis back into the global spotlight. With total prize money reaching unprecedented levels, tournament organizers have framed the move as a bold step forward for the sport and its players. But for Coco Gauff, one of tennis's brightest stars and most influential voices, the moment is far more complicated. Yes, it is progress. Yes, it matters. But no, it is not enough. Coco Gauff's response to the Australian Open prize money announcement was calm, measured, and unmistakably honest. She acknowledged that increasing prize money is important and that it reflects years of advocacy by players across generations. At the same time, she made it clear that record numbers alone do not solve the deeper structural issues that still exist in tennis. For Goff, this is not about headlines or celebrating figures in isolation. It is about context, sustainability, and whether the sport truly values the athletes who generate its global appeal. The Australian Open has often positioned itself as a leader among the four Grand Slams, particularly when it comes to innovation, fan experience, and player welfare. By raising prize money yet again, the tournament reinforces that image. However, Goff's comments highlight an uncomfortable truth. Even record prize money can feel insufficient when viewed against the financial realities players face throughout the year. While top stars earn millions, the vast majority of professionals struggle to break even, covering travel, coaching, fitness, medical care, and living expenses week after week. Goff has always been careful to broaden the conversation beyond herself. As a Grand Slam champion and global icon, she benefits from endorsements and sponsorships that many players will never access. Yet she consistently emphasizes that tennis is not just about the top 10 or the final weekend of a major tournament. It is about the hundreds of players grinding through qualifying rounds, early exits, and lower-tier events just to keep their careers alive. In that sense, record prize money at one tournament, even a Grand Slam, does not automatically translate into financial security for the wider player base. The issue of prize money has long been central to debates about fairness in tennis. Historically, Grand Slams have made significant progress toward gender equality, with equal prize money now standard across all four majors. Coco Gauff has acknowledged this achievement and recognizes it as a victory earned through decades of effort by players before her. Still, she argues that equality should not be the final goal but the foundation for deeper reform. Equal pay at the top does not erase inequality across the broader ecosystem of the sport. From Goff's perspective, the focus should expand to include how revenue is distributed across tournaments, tours, and ranking levels. Tennis is unique among global sports in that players operate largely as independent contractors, absorbing most of the financial risk themselves. There is no guaranteed salary, no team structure to cushion losses, and limited support for those who fall outside the elite tier. When prize money increases are concentrated at the top, the gap between the most successful players and the rest continues to widen. Coco Gauff's comments also reflect a generational shift in how athletes view their role within the sport. Younger stars are increasingly vocal, informed, and unafraid to question long-standing systems. Goff, in particular, has emerged as a thoughtful leader who understands the power of her platform. She does not frame her critiques as attacks but as invitations to do better. Her message is clear: progress should not stop simply because numbers look impressive on paper. The Australian Open's prize money announcement comes at a time when tennis is already grappling with broader questions about its future. Discussions around calendar congestion, player burnout, mental health, and injury prevention have become more urgent. Financial pressure sits at the center of many of these issues. Players often feel compelled to compete even when injured or exhausted because missing tournaments means missing income. From Goff's point of view, addressing prize money in isolation ignores how deeply interconnected these challenges are. Another layer to Goff's argument is the comparison between tennis and other global sports. While tennis generates enormous revenue through broadcasting deals, sponsorships, and ticket sales, players receive a smaller percentage of overall earnings compared to athletes in leagues like the NBA or NFL. Goff has subtly pointed to this imbalance, suggesting that the conversation should move beyond individual tournaments and towards systemic revenue sharing. Record prize money at the Australian Open is meaningful, but it does not fundamentally alter how value is divided within the sport. Goff's stance has resonated with many players and fans who see her as a voice of reason rather than confrontation. She does not deny the importance of celebrating progress. She simply refuses to treat it as the end of the story. In her view, acknowledging that something is a step forward does not require pretending that it solves everything. In fact, real progress depends on recognizing what still needs to change. The reaction to her comments has been largely supportive, especially among players who operate outside the spotlight. Many have echoed her sentiment that increased prize money at majors often feels disconnected from the realities of week-to-week life on tour. Qualifying rounds, early round losses, and smaller tournaments remain financially challenging, and for some players, even participating in a Grand Slam can be a financial risk if they do not advance far. Tournament organizers, on the other hand, continue to emphasize the scale of their investment and the complexity of balancing budgets. Hosting a Grand Slam involves massive costs, from infrastructure and staffing to security and technology. While this context matters, Goff's comments suggest that transparency and collaboration could help bridge the gap between players and organizers. Rather than framing the issue as players versus tournaments, she seems to advocate for a shared responsibility to strengthen the sport as a whole. Coco Gauff's maturity in handling these discussions is striking, especially given her age. She speaks with the awareness of someone who understands history, economics, and the human side of professional sports. Her willingness to engage in nuanced conversations sets her apart in an era where sound bites often dominate. She recognizes that real change is incremental, but she also believes that momentum should be used, not wasted. The Australian Open, for its part, remains a symbol of both progress and contradiction. It leads in many areas, yet it also exists within a system that Goff and others believe needs rethinking. Record prize money sends a powerful message, but without structural reform, it risks becoming a temporary headline rather than a lasting solution. As tennis continues to evolve, voices like Coco Gauff's will likely play an increasingly important role. She represents a generation that expects more from institutions, not out of entitlement, but out of a belief that the sport can and should do better. Her message is not one of dissatisfaction but of ambition. She wants tennis to grow in a way that benefits everyone who contributes to its success, not just those who lift the trophies. In the end, Goff's reaction to the Australian Open prize money announcement captures the complexity of modern tennis. Progress is real. Gains are worth celebrating. But true fairness requires more than record numbers. It requires a system that supports players at every level, values their contributions year-round, and aligns financial rewards with the realities of professional life on tour. For Coco Gauff, the conversation is far from over. And perhaps that is the most important takeaway of all. Record prize money is not a finish line. It is a checkpoint. The next steps will determine whether tennis truly moves forward or simply stands still behind bigger numbers. This is Stefan, and you're watching Trending Update USA.